Hello everyone, it's Laffy Traffy. Chapter 1076 of One Piece was a whirlwind, and of course, the fact that Shanks, red-haired Shanks, played a major role in almost about half the chapter made this chapter all the more enjoyable. We're going to talk about the most important moments of this chapter and kind of dissect them, looking into what they mean for the future and what they mean for the present. Things like the team-up, Vegapunk's capture, and of course, the Shanks versus Kid moment at the end. But before we go further, make sure you subscribe and like the video and let me know your thoughts about this chapter because this one was fantastic for sure and I want to hear all about it. So starting off, we're going to see Luffy and Lucci teaming up. Of course, there were a lot of funny moments where we actually get to see Lucci interacting with Luffy because besides the fighting, we don't really get to see how Lucci handles Luffy, because it's always fun to see a stoic-like character, i.e. Law, this is a pretty funny kind of parallel to him, to see how they handle Luffy and his logic. Lucci has been portrayed as very calm, cool, and collected, but then of course when Luffy taunts him, he immediately falls into step with it and just completely loses that mystique that he's been holding on to. And although it's clear that he's an opposite to Luffy, he's also very blunt and doesn't really care for the flowery deceit that some people do. He just immediately starts telling everyone about his plans, like, yes, I was sent here to kill Vegapunk, you're on my list, not on good terms. So, really your choice if you want to uncuff us or not. And Kaku's like, what are you doing? Meanwhile, Zoro, Luffy's like, oh, well, Kaku said that you're not going to attack us, though, if you let us go, so that sounds like a great time. And Zoro's like, no, this isn't how it works. It was fun to see the Luffy and Lucci and then Kaku and Zoro kind of trying to manage their superiors, in a way. But once they do officially team up, Luffy and Lucci, Luffy goes gear 4th, they both have a really strong attack against S-Bear, and then Zoro and Kaku have an intense attack as well against Hawk. And seeing them both get blown away was super impressive considering what we've seen the Seraphim are capable of. But I think these attacks are just going to be, again, a testament to how strong these Seraphim are. So although they were blown away, I feel like they're gonna be getting back up soon. And also seeing the mysterious power that S-Hawk has, that it is the Dice fruit. I mean, I don't think you could have picked... There were few better choices for S-Hawk than the Dice fruit, because he is able to now use his superior swordsmanship not on just his sword, but on any part of his body, and that's great choice, Vegapunk, if you're the one who chose it. It's a good one. Also, Luffy throwing shade completely nonchalantly is one of my favorite things in the world. He's like, okay, so once you escape and you help us defeat the guys, you're gonna figure out that I'm stronger than you, so once we get that over with, then you'll just, you'll leave my friends alone and you'll just surrender, right? Like, he's not saying it to gloat, he's just like matter of fact, like, well, I'm stronger than you, right? So why would you not surrender? And Lucci, again, just like I said earlier, he just immediately falls into pace and falls for it. Even Zoro's like, he fell for it. Lucci's like, no, wait, what do you mean? I'm gonna kill you first. You're the first on my list, you straw-hatted bastard. But Luffy throwing shade is always fun. Now moving on to Vegapunk being captured, it seems to confirm that one of the Seraphim are the imposters on the inner circle, because Vegapunk mentioned a lot of the details of their inner workings, researching the poneglyphs, things like that. It's not something that not just anyone would know that Vegapunk is up to. He would, of course, keep that to his inner circle, being the satellites. And they were even capturing random agents under Vegapunk's nose without his knowledge of it. And at first I was wondering how a satellite, one of the members, would even be able to get away with it, but it's been pretty evident that they don't share all of their senses and all of their memories, because they need to communicate with the little earpieces that they've been using, and at the end of the day they share their knowledge, but it doesn't mean that they are sharing their entirety of their day or, intentions. So it's very likely that one of the satellites could be the imposter, and most likely at this point is. So we gotta get into the suspects and when was Vegapunk last seen. We gotta go Sherlock Holmes on this. Well, Vegapunk was last seen as a child with Bonnie, when Bonnie found the Kuma memory chamber. She's been on a trip in the meantime, but that's the last time we saw him. She turned Vegapunk into a child, and then he tried to stop her, and he didn't. And we have not seen him since. Now the suspects. We unfortunately don't know too much about all of the satellites, but I'm going to mention my 3 candidates that I think are worth mentioning. The first one, I think one of the biggest twists would be if it was Shaka, because he seems to be the leader. He's the Satellite 01, and he's been the one who's kind of been telling everyone about the tampering and the alarms going down. He's kind of been the victim of most of what's been going on, so it seems like he'd be one of the least likely people to be the imposter, but that's why I think it would be a twist if he was actually the imposter. Because he seems to be the leader, he might be the one capable enough to pull it off. Now, I don't want that to be the case because I think Shaka's might be my favorite one, but it might be. And it would be interesting because Shaka is with Luffy and Zoro right now, so if it was revealed that he was the imposter, it would be a little bit more impactful that Luffy would be the one to have to witness that and deal with it. And of course, protect Vegapunk thereafter. Now, my most obvious suspect would be Lilith, because she's the one who's been interacting and seems to control the Sea Beast the best, and the Sea Beasts are responsible for capturing those Cipher Pol agents. So how would the Sea Beast be able to do all this without her consent, without her knowledge? Seems to be it's obviously her, or it would be most likely her, but because it's so obvious, I think that might be the red herring, and that's what we're supposed to think. But now hear me out. My bet, Pythagoras. He was alone and unaccounted for, wandering about the lab when everything was going crazy. He had an alibi? No. Did he get attacked? Yes. But it could be a simple miscalculation, and I know what you're thinking, Pythagoras? A miscalculation? What? But it could be, because if he commanded the Seraphim to attack the satellites, all of Vegapunk, he would be included. And maybe it's a self-sacrificial lamb type, where he's willing to go down with the ship as long as Vegapunk is destroyed. And him getting attacked is just what he would want you to think, clearing him of any suspicion. I'm onto him. He's sus. But those are my opinions at the moment. I'm sure if you go back a few chapters, there might be more evidence, but right now, I'm listening to my jellies, and that's what I'm sticking with. Pythagoras. He's my victim. I mean, suspect. Let's not do anything hasty here. But definitely let me know who you think is the most suspicious, and who's your wild card. Now we get to what we are all waiting for, the Shanks part. It's been known for a while now that Shanks and Elbaf are related in some way due to their shared inspiration of Viking culture, but to see Shanks just hanging out in a bar on Elbaf while the citizens call him Chief? Again, encore. Yes please, thank you. And we shouldn't have been surprised to see him, because he just did a drive-by on Wano. And where did Kid leave? Wano. Where did Kid go? Elbaf. So it's pretty reasonable that Shanks did that exact path. So Kid, unfortunate for him, just followed the path. And looks like he's just wanting to get his arm back. That's all it is. But unfortunately, the power dynamics are a bit skewed. Kid is very strong, of course, but he is the weakest of the trio, in my opinion. And that does not necessarily pair with possibly the strongest emperor, besides Buggy, of course, in a fight. Because in my fairyland of law hype, I consider the gap of power between Law and Blackbeard to be a little bit smaller than Shanks and Kid. I mean, that's not to say that I think Law has a chance with Blackbeard. I think the odds are definitely not in his favor, but you could talk about it. You could talk about ways that Law could possibly overcome Blackbeard or escape him, because Law is a very logical type. Kid, however, he goes balls to the wall, no retreat, he is going in to attack Shanks, and if he doesn't win, that means he's dead. Kid in this scenario, I think, does not have a chance. Which, like I said in my reaction, which go check that out if you want to see the live reaction there, we're not talking about just Shanks. As if just Shanks was even a reasonable sentence to say. We're talking about Shanks' allies and the giants. We got Dory and Broggy. And Oimo and Kashi from Eni's Lobby, if you recognize those two faces in the back. I seem to remember a cover story covering their travels back to Elbaf, but it is good to see them back on Elbaf, Dory and Broggy and the other two, to see that they made it back to their homeland safely and are now teaming up with Shanks. So not only does Kid have to worry about Shanks himself as a solo person, because I feel like that's enough, he also has to worry about Shanks' officers. His entire crew is there with him. Not only that, he also has to worry about Dory and Broggy, one of the fiercest captains of the giant pirates of their time. And their time is still now. And then they also have to deal with two other giants, who have been portrayed as pretty strong fighters in their own right. So yeah, I'm sorry. Kid's not supposed to win here. Does anyone think that? No. So what is this setting up then? What is this setting the new generation up for? Because we have the parallels of Kid and Law going up against the Emperors. Is this wiping them out? Is this wiping the new generation out? Putting them in their place? Did they get too confident taking out Kaido and Big Mom? Start tying other allies into the end game, such as Kobe, Garp, Pudding, X-Drake, possible gang over there helping Law. But who's helping Kid? No one. Because I know what it can't be setting up. It can't be setting up the continued downfall of the Emperors. Again, I'm sorry, but Kid and Law, one-on-one, crew versus crew, you're not taking out those Emperors. So it's definitely setting up something interesting for the future for the new generation, and I'm curious if we're going to get more information on the others. I mean, there's tons of other characters that we haven't seen anything from. Of course, we have this core trio, and that's who we've been following mostly, but now that they're going up against the Emperors, I really don't know. I had a good theory for Law, but now that Kid's in this, I don't know. I don't see Kid retreating or trying to find a way away from Shanks. He's going forward. He is charging Shanks. That can't end well for anyone except Shanks. But that's just something that we'll have to stay tuned for. And unfortunately, there is a break next week, so we probably won't be getting that answer anytime soon. The conclusion of that fight will surely be held until possibly a chapter shared, where the endings of both fights are portrayed in all their devastation. But I do want to know what you think Kid's out is here. Is he just gonna be killed? I don't think so. So what could be some ways that Kid could get out of this alive? Or at least with one arm. Maybe he'll take a leg instead. But overall, this chapter has been just perfect, and there have been a lot of parallels too. I was just talking about the Kid versus Shanks paralleling with Law versus Blackbeard, but there were a lot of other parallels as well, just like the stoic character getting caught up in Luffy's goofiness, i.e. Law, and then now Lucci. We also have Lucci and Luffy being kind of parallel to each other because they're both very blunt and they don't, again, care for the lies and deceit of politics, if you will. And then the one that hit so dearly was when Shanks was drinking at the bar and we see the giant child, small giant child, with the barmaid talking about how he just wants to join Shanks's crew. And Shanks is talking about how, well, you're too much of a brat, you know, you're not ready to join my crew yet. Which, of course, without being said, is a homage to Luffy in his early days of aspiring to be part of Shanks's crew. Sorry, giant child, Shanks is fresh out of hats. But the parallels were really awesome, and seeing Shanks again in more than one panel per chapter was invigorating, and I'm very excited to see where this goes, where Kid and Shanks goes, where Law and Blackbeard goes, how this all ties in with the end game, what new allies are going to be showing up, and what's going to happen on Egghead, because as the Marines stated, there are a couple of ships headed their way. So that's something to look forward to. Let me know what you are looking forward to most, and let me know how you like this chapter. Also like this video, of course, and don't forget to subscribe. This has been One Piece chapter 1076. Break next week, but I'll see you next time. Also, my birthday's on Tuesday. Woo!